Hello everybody. This video is about market gardening. Something that is an interesting issue when you're speaking in putting it into terms of agroforestry. Now it's a little bit hard to begin because there's so many moving parts that all operate at once together in this, but let me comb it apart. So market gardening, okay, I'll change my wording. So I'll put it into the context of agroforestry, vegetables, or as they say, the Brazilians say, horticulture. Now, this has become a bit of a hot topic and a bit controversial because there is, and I will just quickly segue out to that Monday's Q&A for the 4th of July is based on strategy, and that's a lot of that heavy planting and intensive planting in Helen's question relates to this. So the typical, well, a lot of what you see, which is, I call it the copy and paste Syntropic course that happens heaps and heaps and heaps, which is nothing wrong with it. As long as the only thing wrong with it is if it is indicated to the students that this is how it's done in a sort of a dogmatic way, or if the real fluidity of application isn't taught in the course and people have the impression that that's how it's done, and then you end up seeing somebody doing a large-scale agroforestry system somewhere else in Brazil, so in Bahia, then they go, where's the vegetables, or where's the lettuce? You know, then it's clear that that learning isn't complete. So there's nothing wrong with putting all of those vegetables in, but what it does, what happens, this is a fact, this is what happens, is you have to do two different things at once, and you have to be a market gardener as well as managing agroforestry. So you have to market garden, and then you have to manage consortia. Not just the market garden consortia, but the whole system consortia in the tree rows. You've just been tasked with two different jobs. Now, how I will separate those jobs in description is this. We've probably all got a fair idea about how we've got to manage consortia in tree rows, in species succession. Of course, the vegetable rows, if they're dedicated ones, don't really go through succession. There's just life cycle differences, really, and a tiny little bit, the minimum amount of stratification difference. Plus we have the horticulture in the tree rows generally too, which is a great idea. It works well, but it's another workload on top of managing the big picture succession. You're emerging tree seeds, you're pruning, your management. You're doing two things at once. Because the second thing is market gardening. Because the reason I say this is, yes, you can say, all right, yeah, the vegetables are part of the system, so you're managing them too in succession as part of syntropy, and that's technically correct. But the big issue is market gardening is what you're doing. Horticulture requires market gardening, and what I mean by market gardening is all of the management suite that you need to employ to manage that horticulture, those vegetables. Now, why it's different than just managing consortia in through succession and moving up into perennials is market gardening is a big job on its own. It is it requires a lot of skill and a lot of management intensity. Now, your typical mistake when these systems are planted out with vegetables everywhere, it looks great, everyone's happy, wow, what a miracle. And all well and good. But what's happened is you've created a major commitment in management. And market gardening, like I said, it is a skill and it is not easily learned, and you have to be a pro to manage those types of systems and all of those vegetables. You have to make sure they've got all of the water, you have to make sure you know how to harvest fast. Now, it's no surprise that a lot of market garden projects fail because there's such high intensity management. There's no room for error. When you fail hard in market gardening. You ask any market gardener, you know, an organic market gardener, you check them out, go there and do a few weeks work or whatever. Probably a few of you in this group are already been out there and experienced it. It's serious business, hard work, highly skilled. You have to be fast. You know, you have to really move through, you know, like people like, you know, Jody Roebuck, Curtis Stone, Fortier, those people, mate, they're timing every action they have down to not just minutes, but minutes and seconds. You know, they take 3 minutes and 42 seconds on average to get through this row with this type of stirrup hoe to weed out. Things like that. It's specific and precise. There's hardly any room for error. You can't carry, market gardening cannot carry people who are unskilled and have that market garden can't succeed. The reason being, even if they work for free, because when you go and harvest, let's just say you've got yourself a really good market gardener who's managing, doing everything. He gets 2 people to help him that don't know what they're doing. He's going to be tied up helping them. And if them two just go away and do something else that's unskilled and leave that person alone, that person's going to get the job done faster than if the other 2 were helping, because he has to go, or she has to go and undo their mistakes or monitor them with every movement they make until they get it right. And, you know, it comes down to, particularly when you're picking, let's just say, here's an example. If you're picking radishes, you're pulling the bunches, and mind you, you've got to pick 90 bunches an hour. On average, minimum of 60 bunches an hour for picking otherwise the whole project loses. Particularly a market garden will lose money if someone can't pick $60 an hour. It'll be break even. Picking's the highest cost. Not to mention every other single cost involved. You can immediately go under just on your picking expenses. So if you're picking radishes, for example, you have to pick clean. If you're picking and bunching radishes, you've got to pick clean. You can't have a bit of mulch or straw or anything in with that rubber band. Because if you're picking with a dirty, or you're not picking clean, you're not picking grade, you've got all different size radishes and they're weird shapes, and it's not a bunch that's going to land on the shelf and go, yep, I'm going to buy that. You go, hang on, that's full of mulch and straw, and that's a weird one there, and the bunch size is uneven. That one's big, that one's little, that one I don't even want to look at. That's what you're going to get if you get people who are just really keen, super keen, get in and help a brand new, despite their great intentions and everything like that. You're going to get trouble. You're going to buy trouble. So my point is, you're taking on 2 jobs at once, and it's a big thing to ask newcomers to Syntropic Ag, let alone any ag, to come in as a pro market gardener as well as an agroforester. Now, I think, like I said, there's nothing wrong with doing it that way or teaching it that way, but it must be made clear that these are the requirements. Because the reason I say this, and I'm saying this kind of emphatically, is because I've seen too many failures. I've seen nearly 100% of my failures, of the failures that I've seen personally in this, when this approach is taken. The task, the high level of responsibility and skill is not understood. And then what happens is, it looks great, sounds great, everyone goes home, 1 or 2 people are left with it. You know, it's just a major commitment. and so what's not understood is the fact that market gardening is a huge skill set in itself. So yeah, sure, market gardening and agroforestry is great. Add that, understand that skill set, add that to the market, add that to the agroforestry, and you've got yourself something really awesome. Yeah, you've got yourself something really awesome. So, but what I want to talk about is how we can apply market gardening to the agroforestry, and then how can make it work for us. Sorry, everybody. Make it work for us in agroforestry, and also then from that point, once we understand the workload that's involved in it, the daily picking and the skills that we need, then we can then add all of these really, really super awesome benefits that agroforestry add to market gardening and how it strengthens it and how we can work with it. So I've been sort of a little bit back and forth with, I don't know if you've heard of him, Farmer Jesse from the No Till podcast. And he's doing some awesome stuff. And he's moving, right? The direction he's moving is towards the direction we're working in with what we do with agroforestry and market gardening in agroforestry. So in agroforestry, soil, 100% soil cover, 100% of the time. So that's where he's going, instead of just relying on bare compost and relying on always bringing in compost. So we add biomass. That's how we work. So when we add biomass, we build compost in situ. We have the worms and all of the soil life, and it rots in, and we keep adding more and more biomass. That's how it works. But what he does that's really great is he's bringing no-till. He's doing no-till. We, of course, don't till unless we have to do it once to kill grass or something. But he's bringing in that no-till, but he's bringing in cover cropping in. And this is a really interesting space to bring into market gardening. And what I like about Farmer Jesse is that he's very, very, very realistic about the realities of cover cropping. Now, this is really important to understand. Cover cropping, like regenerative agriculture itself, has overpromised. And it's not done through deceit or anything like that, but it's when people see it who don't do it, pick it up and run with it and love it. And they love it so much, they oversell it, and it ends up sort of indicating that it promises more than what it can actually deliver. And what I really like about Farmer Jesse is he makes that clear. And I agree with him. I haven't seen, with the work I've done with cover crops, I haven't seen that reality manifest. And theoretically, I've never understood how it could. But I can give you an example, right? So as agroforesters and working in Syntropic, we know that if we've got really, really, really good biomass production, we're really lucky if we can get 2 to 1, 2 square meters of biomass production to cover 1 square meter of bed area. Now, obviously a cover crop is 1 to 1. That's what it is. When you roll a crimp or you crimp down and terminate a cover crop, it's 1 to 1. We can't get it. We know what happens when we're 1 to 1. It doesn't work. We get weeds. You know, it doesn't. It's good. It feeds the soil, especially if the plants are crimped and the roots stay in the ground and decay, and all the life that those roots bring. It's super, super good. And there's all those other advantages about cover crops that are really, really good. But there's an insufficient biomass. And that's just a fact. So Farmer Jesse brings that to the fore. But this is where I think that that agroforestry, and particularly Farmer Jesse's work, I'm going to sort of single him out as the guy that really is coming out in front, I believe. From what I know anyway, there might be other people and more, but he's, as far as I'm concerned, the leader when it comes to moving into that really regenerative space and starting to work with, you know, more life and cover the soil and dig, and getting away from addictive money spending, which is what we call it, addictive, which is not addictive actually. Addictive is when, it's kind of addictive. Sorry, it's holistic management terminology and jargon there, but it's a fixed cost of constant compost importing. The problems with that are compost is not always up to scratch. It's not always available, and it's increasing in price. It's just unsustainable. it's not going to keep up for this we all know the farmers that are in the game buying compost and using it all the time, they know that it's always the weak link. And you know, my mate Rod out at Summit, you know, he's getting a compost making business, an operator, he's letting him use his land so Rod can secure the compost supply. You know, you don't do that unless, if it was abundant, you wouldn't bother. Anyway, so what I'm, with this new market gardening topic, what I want to do is I want to work on the real true strengths that market gardening has in syntropic ag, not write it off, not go right around the other way and go, okay, bug us market gardening, we're not going to do it anymore because it's too hard and it's sort of distracting us from managing consortia and moving into species succession and perennials. No, let's try and let's get that sweet spot. Let's find it and let's get that power, because I tell you what, species succession, it's placenta 1. We can always create disturbance in selected areas in the agroforestry and keep cropping in market garden sort of placenta 1 stuff and grow annuals. Now, in my experience, I've learned a lot of hard lessons. I've gone through a lot of pain, but I was determined. I did bare soil a couple of times, never again. I did bare compost a couple of times too. I won't do it again because it's just, I don't like looking at bare compost. I didn't produce that biomass. It's not what I want. And I know when I've got covered soil and I've grown that mulch and done all of that, I'm building soil, I'm regenerative. I'm building soil in situ from what I've grown. That's regenerative ag. So I'm not going to move off that. Yeah, I'm stubborn. I'm not going to drop my standard because I know what I'm here for. I'm a regenerative farmer, you know. I'm not going to lie to myself. So, but from that commitment, I suppose you could say, I've made, I've learned heaps and adapted a lot, and I've got heaps more to share soon. I really do. I'm not going to go into it now, but gee, I'm really excited about the other stuff I'm going to share. What I want to do is share my success. So I've, you know, worked out how to grow vegetable consortia, how to grow the right plants together to get the outcome instead of putting all the plants together, because you can, and technically or theoretically you can put them together, but they grow, the whole thing grows, and it just doesn't really work out. That's really common too. That's the other thing, actually. You end up with so many goddamn plants that technically can grow together in life cycle differences and strata, but really at the end of the day, it doesn't work out that way. You know, you get leggy plants that are starved for light and things like that and whatnot quite often, but there are bits of that really work like gold, and they're stunning how it can work out. So I'm going to share that. I'm going to share what works, and I'm going to share a lot more. And what I think I'm going to do, I probably may need a little bit of support for this because I've got to take on more work, but it's really super important that it does get done, is I've got to get a little bit of that going out at my farm to keep pushing it forward and developing come off what I've already done at my last farm, and then get that information and share it so it keeps getting out there, and share it. And I hope to share it actually with Farmer Jesse. I've kind of had a little bit of a backwards and forwards with him, and there's so much that's come out of, not talking to him, but from what we've done. And yeah, I'll go into that again. So another video, I've got a lot of good stuff to share, and I'll make a video about that. But one of the things we did do, which we had to direct drill. We had to direct drill. We couldn't just keep using the jang, because the jang needs tilth, and that's digging, that's rotary hoeing, and that's just not. I'm not into it. I'm not going to do it. So we built a direct drill for a market garden, and that is just it's a great little device, and I'll be sharing heaps more of that super soon because we're going to test it again and I'll video it. But that direct drill is how I connected with Farmer Jesse. So I think, but the long and short of it is I think a lot of the things that we've all learned from market gardening or horticulture in agroforestry is we can take that and hybridize it with all of the fantastic work that Farmer Jesse has done, and see what comes of the marriage of both. Because if there's anything good or worthy that I've achieved or discovered or learned from other people and practiced. And if there's anything that's worthy in that, that can be adopted by people like Farmer Jesse and get that hybridization going, and I get what I learned from Farmer Jesse into our space and grow it, there's something in it. There's a lot of value there, and there's something in it for all of us. But at the end of the day, the soil's covered. The soil's covered with biomass, with sufficient biomass. That's something I can share, I think, with Farmer Jesse. I believe that I can share how to do that. And solve some of those problems with cover crop, roller crimped cover crop, or crimped cover crop. Solve some of those problems by what we know in agroforestry that's coming from a completely different direction to the same place. And when they cross over, that hybridization, I believe, is going to be very vigorous and productive. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share in the comments a lot of photos down below to start us off.